In this installment, we're going to be going over Sunday Night Football Showdown slate on DraftKings. We have an NFC East battle here between the New York Giants and the Washington Commanders. Let's get into it. Hey, yo! Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy, Chef D, and I'm here to give you the winning ingredients for your Sunday Night Football Showdown on DraftKings between the NFC East battle, here between the New York Giants and the Washington Commanders. But before I deep dive into this great slate, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at MetsNetsJetsD. And don't forget about that TikTok at Chef_D91. And don't forget about the Patreon. I keep saying it over and over and over again. I'm going to drill it in your head. Don't forget about that Patreon. These were the plays. I gave out the DFS plays yesterday. Killed it, okay? One of my top quarterbacks, as you can see, was Kirk Cousins. And you saw what he did. Absolutely phenomenal performance. Great comeback, Kirk Cousins. Josh Allen was second, obviously, the touchdown and the rushing upside. That's why I spoke about him. Gave a little blurb about the weather. Number one running back was Dalvin Cook, and he was the number one back to have. All right, I told you guys to wait on Jeff Wilson news. But obviously, if he was out, then we would move on to Mostert. Wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, all those guys scored. Dawson Knox was my number one tight end. All right. And the bets came in. I love Vikings money line. I switched it. I made a quick change to Colts +3, but it didn't matter either way. You won, okay? You won either way. Had the Browns money line, and I had the Dolphins +7, okay? All those came through beautifully. And let's check out the winnings. We're going to check out the winnings here. I told you, I made a little late swish with the Colts +3.5. That covered. That came through. Browns money line. That came through. We had at halftime, I should have threw it on the money line, but we had the Vikings spread at +25.5. We knew, come on, the Colts were not going to hold that lead. This is a dynamic offense on the side of the Minnesota Vikings. They came back and won it. So I wish I would have had that money line, but that's okay. Parlayed it all together. Colts, Browns, Dolphins. Had another one. Portland Trailblazers, Phoenix Suns. That was something real late that I already I liked a lot. We had Dolphins +7 and Phoenix Suns. I wanted to match it with the Suns. That was another good win. We got more. Yes, I love the Browns. I had the Browns by itself. That was another good win. Had the Miami Dolphins by itself. I was very confident in that one. And I think that's it. So, guys, sign up for the Patreon for these picks and plays. Sign up for the freaking Patreon, man. Let's move on and get into this injury report. First thing we got to get into before we break down the slate is going to be the injury report. On the Washington Commanders side, we have Sadiq Charles. He's going to be out with a concussion. We got Q tags on D lineman Adoba. Cam Sims is questionable. Benjamin St-Juste, cornerback, is questionable. Chase Young is questionable as well. And that's pretty much it. Everyone is coming back a little bit healthy. It's good to see that Antonio Gibson's going to be back along with Brian Robinson. They're going to definitely need their two running backs going up against this poor rush defense here in the New York Giants, all right? On the Giants side of the injury report, we have out on Josh Azudu. Adoree Jackson, that's going to be big. He's going to be out. Shane Lemieux is going to be out as well. Daniel Bellinger, we already know he's on IR. And we are waiting on, Ellerson Smith is on IR. David Bellinger's Q tag. We're waiting on news with Richie James, Nick McLeod, and Jihad Ward, and Leonard Williams. Leonard Williams, obviously, he helps in that run-stopping ability for the New York Giants, so it'll be great to see him in action as well. So not really big significance here going through the injury report. That's going to affect the offensive side of the ball. Just a little bit here with Adoree Jackson. And it could be huge if Chase Young finally gets in here as well. That could be a factor to help stop Daniel Jones. So let's go into these captains. On to the El Capitans. And the first guy we're going to talk about all the way at the top will be Saquon Barkley. All right. This is the number one player on that field. All right. This is the game changer, the X factor here in Saquon Barkley. He had a solid performance against Washington 2 weeks ago. 18 carries, 63 yards, 1 touchdown, 5 receptions, and 5 targets and had 18 yards receiving as well. So Saquon didn't get you to 20 points, all right, but did in a tough matchup get you at least 19 fantasy points. That's a bright side to see, and it makes us feel a little bit better going back to that well if you want to go to Saquon Barkley at that captain position, all right, because we already know this is a bad matchup technically, all right. If you're going to fantasy points allowed to that running back position, these Washington Commanders have been top 5 the past couple of weeks, only allowing 63.8 yards, 3.9 yards a carry, but this is different. We're talking about Saquon Barkley here. When it comes to top 5 deep run defenses, when you have an elite top tier talent at running back, everything goes away, all right? And you saw it against Washington, but you didn't see it against Philadelphia, right? That's a little bit of a different monster there. So I have no problem going back to the well with Saquon Barkley going up against Washington. If he's not going to get utilized in the rushing game, he will see touches in the receiving game. He's going to be a key component with all the injuries to the New York Giants wide receiver core. So Saquon Barkley, solid play at captain. Next, we have Daniel Jones. Got to speak about Daniel Jones. His reasoning of playing at that captain position is his rushing ability. Brian Daboll can draw up some quarterback runs, some bootlegs to get Daniel Jones going, have him on the move, get him in some space, and find open guys down the field. And I want to take advantage of anyone that is dual threat, okay? Saquon Barkley, rushing, receiving. All right, Daniel Jones, passing, rushing. We got to take advantage of that because that's where upside comes in. Against Philadelphia, it was a blowout, but he still got you 19 fantasy points, all right? And another game against Detroit was another blowout and a loss, still got you 29 fantasy points. That's going to be very key. So Daniel Jones going up against this defense here. Against Washington 2 weeks ago, he had 18 fantasy points. That was good to see. And he had a very good QB rating of 104.3. So I have no problem going to Daniel Jones at that captain spot. Taylor Heineke. They had this game in control. I don't understand what happened and the reason why they let the Giants come back, but that's probably going to be on the defensive side of the ball. Taylor Heineke had a solid game, 27-41, 2 touchdowns, and even ran for 6 yards rushing. But he did fumble the ball twice. That's questionable and lost one of them. So that's what could be one of the reasons why they faltered and ended up in a tie in their first game in Week 13. He's still fitting solidly at 18 fantasy points. You can see a scenario where you can play both quarterbacks on both sides. You can play Daniel Jones and you can play Taylor Heineke. Both of these guys, especially Heineke, he's a gunslinger. He's willing to go for it, and he's going to take risks, okay? And those risks can equal points. So if you see some opportunities, he might rush for a couple yards here or there, right? Or if he sees someone open down deep, he has the pass catchers that he can get it to. Not super athletic, but does enough. He's a gutsy quarterback, Taylor Heineke. And I have no problem going to him at the captain spot if you see a scenario, if you like that type of lineup build with Taylor Heineke at the captain spot. You would need to go for like 2, 3, 4 touchdowns, all right? And probably throwing a couple rushing, all right? So if you don't like him at captain, definitely he should be a very decent flex play, all right? And I like lineup builds with Daniel Jones and Heineke together, all right? If we're going to pair Heineke, we got to pair it with his number 1 wide receiver here in Terry McLaurin. Very, very good game. Finally, a breakout type of game against the Giants here. With Adoree Jackson out, Terry McLaurin does become a very good captain play. And we saw in Week 13, 8 for 12 targets, 105 yards, and a TD. That's the Terry McLaurin that we're used to. If these two guys are connected, this could be a huge day yet again. So we can hopefully get back-to-back games of Terry McLaurin having a great production, all right? Let's look at fantasy points allowed to the running back position on the New York Giants side of the ball. We're going to have to scroll all the way down here. And they are 31st overall, 30th in the red zone, allowing 142 rushing yards a game, 5.2 yards a carry. This is why we're going to look towards Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson is going to get the bulk of the work. It's pretty much split down the middle, all right? Brian Robinson gets the bulk of the work when Antonio Gibson is hurt or injured or hampered. That's why you saw 21 carries in that game. He was a little bit hampered, and that's why you saw some receptions as well from Brian Robinson. All right. Now with Antonio Gibson cleared, it's going to be split right down the middle, and Antonio Gibson is going to have the receiving upside. All right. He played a little bit in that game, left, and now he doesn't carry a injury designation in this game here, going up against the New York Giants. So he was on pace to have a solid day, got injured. Antonio Gibson is going to be the play. I like him over Brian Robinson because he has more upside, he has more juice. We're going to get receptions, and he has the possibility to really cash in that way, getting a touchdown as well. All right, he hasn't had a touchdown since week 10, so he is pretty due. All right, so I love Antonio Gibson over Brian Robinson if we want to attack this rushing game, but you can go Brian Robinson as well. All right. This is a very poor rush defense. Like I said, I just showed you 142 yards a game allowed to the running back position. Both of these guys are in a very, very good position. All right. If we want to pair one wide receiver on the Giants side, the only good one that they have is Darius Slayton. Obviously struggled against the Philadelphia Eagles. That's a top tier defense. Darius Slay, James Bradbury. They know James Bradbury knows Darius Slayton. All right. So in the previous game in Week 13 against Washington, 6 for 90. Solid performance over double-digit fantasy points. That's what we're looking for. If we're looking for someone that has some upside, all right? He just needs to get in the end zone. Hasn't got a touchdown since Week 10. He's another guy that's due. Daniel Jones, if he connects to Darius Slayton, he tends to throw deep balls to him anyway. I'm loving Darius Slayton with the upside to getting in the end zone in a very, very deep pass. Look at these long receptions that he has. 37 yards, 55 yards, 44 yards, 54 yards. This is their deep guy here in Darius Slayton. He comes down with one. He has the high probability to get in the end zone, and you're looking at a great captain right there in Darius Slayton. This is the number one wide receiver for the New York Giants. All right, so let's move on to the flex ops. And the first guy we're going to get into is going to be Mr. Consistency here. That's going to be Curtis Samuel for the Washington Commanders. He does a little bit of everything. He's going to get you double-digit fantasy points. He's already averaging for the year 11.6. A little bit of a struggle between week 10, 11, and 12, but what we saw before, we got 14 fantasy points against the Giants, 17 against Minnesota, 10 against Indianapolis. Green Bay was 12, Tennessee was 12. Philadelphia was 13, Detroit was 22, and Jacksonville was 20 as well. So Curtis Samuel here, their gadget guy. He's going to get receptions. They use him in the running game. He can pop one off and take it to the house as well against this poor rush defense here. He saw 3 for 23 that game previously in week 13 as well. So this guy has a lot of upside. He's going to be one of our favorite plays at the flex. He should be in each and every one of our lineups. He's going to give you a very solid floor, and we're hoping for big, big upside. So at the end of this video, he's going to be a guy that we're going to have, all right? He's a nice glue. He's glue right there. And Curtis Samuel, I love him. He's going to get utilized in a multiple of facets, all right? At that tight end position for the Giants, they use a myriad of tight ends, all right? Daniel Bellinger, if he's cleared, he's going to be the lead guy. They have Lawrence Cager as well. So I'm not saying this is going to be one of our favorite plays here. They go in the bottom tier at the tight end between Daniel Bellinger and Lawrence Cager because Cager has a little bit more upside with athleticism, all right? He was a former wide receiver. So Bellinger, I mentioned him. He's one of the lower echelon flex plays, but I won't put him in the pool, okay? If we continue to go down, Jahan Dotson, their rookie wide receiver, he has come on the scene. We saw how he bursted earlier in the season with great games against Jacksonville, Detroit, and Dallas. Coming back from a little bit of an injury the past 4 weeks, he finally got back to what he used to was doing at the beginning of the season in week 13, 5 and 9 for 54 and a touchdown. Jahan Dotson is very, very sneaky, okay? I like these Washington Commander wide receivers, and all the injuries to the secondary in the New York Giants is going to lean me towards me playing these Washington Commander wide receivers. We already like Terry McLaurin. Curtis Samuel is great glue, and Jahan Dotson is very, very sneaky. He's another guy that we're going to have to play in just a little bit, all right? On the other side of the ball, we got Isaiah Hodgins and we got Richie James Jr. These are going to be the 2 and 3 wide receivers for the New York Giants, all right? So we've seen some consistency here with Isaiah Hodgins the last 2 weeks against Philadelphia. He got 6 targets, got a touchdown. Against Washington, he got 6 targets, got a touchdown. So 2 back-to-back double-digit fantasy point performances from Isaiah Hodgins. He's going under the radar here, and he's cashing in on his opportunity. So I'm liking Isaiah Hodgins as well. If you want to go away from Darius Slayton, you want to stick with this trend here. He already has 2 games in a row. Might as well go to the well yet again with Isaiah Hodgins, with all the attention on Darius Slayton, Saquon Barkley, and those likes. Richie James Jr., he'll be someone that we got to consider as well. Richie James Jr. has had some solid games this season. Week 12, 15.1. Week 11, 13.8. If we go a little bit previous, it was a bumpy road, but he was utilized at the beginning of the season. So now, with all the guys out, all right, you got Slayton, you got Hodges, and Richie James. Richie James saw 7 receptions, 9 targets, 61 yards, and a touchdown. Didn't have a great game against Washington in Week 13, 3 for 20. So, what do we believe in? Because if we're looking at the game log, he has 3 touchdowns in the last 5 weeks. So, as a slot wide receiver in this Brian Daboll offense, if you can consider it to similar what the Buffalo Bills are bringing to the table, that's what he's trying to, that kind of idea, he's trying to bring it over to the New York Giants. They throw to that slot receiver heavily. So hopefully we can get another performance similar to what we saw against Philadelphia, 7 for 9 for 61 in a touchdown. Hopefully we get that against Washington, and he bounces back from this 3 for 20. So Richard James can be considered as well as a flex option. Let's get into these defenses and kickers. I'm going to stay away from the Giants defense. Yes, Taylor Heineke is prone to giving up that football. All right, and this Giants defense got you 8 fantasy points. That's solid. All right, we want more in the double-digit range if we really want to play this defense. But I just see a lot of holes in that Giants defense going against these Washington Commanders wide receivers, and I'm very heavily leaning towards that and their running game. That's why I'm going to stay away from the Giants defense, but we can play the Commanders defense here. Chase Young comes back, they can turn up the heat on Daniel Jones, and they can create turnovers. This was a top tier defense earlier in the season. They have a couple double-digit fantasy point performances against Philadelphia, 15 fantasy points. That's good to see. 13 against Chicago, and they're getting healthier now. So Washington Commanders is going to be the defense I lean more towards. And the kicker situation, you can consider both Graham Gano and Joey Sly. You can consider them, all right? They're not going to be high-value plays at the flex, but I don't mind playing either one of those 2 guys, all right? So we'll throw Gano and Sly in the pool here, and we're leaning more towards Commanders defense, all right? Anyone down below before we close this thing out? Matt Breida is the backup running back here. Saquon Barkley, he would need to get in the end zone. I don't think we need to go that route. As long as Saquon Barkley is healthy, then we can stay away from him. Kenny Golladay is a non-play, and then Lawrence Cager is the number 2 tight end that I mentioned. And since Daniel Bellinger has been back, he's been taking over, all right? And you see, coach's decision, Lawrence Cager has been inactive. So if Daniel Bellinger is cleared, we can go towards him. Logan Thomas is the tight end for the Washington Commanders. Pretty rough season for him. Obviously coming back from an injury. Don't expect much out of him. I'm gonna just lean towards towards the wide receivers on the Washington side of the ball, and anyone lower than the kickers and defenses. I don't think I want to go this far. De'Ami Brown is a deep wide receiver there. And Myrick is a backup tight end. So we don't need to go that far. Let's go in and lock in the 3 guys we need to have in each and every one of our lineups. And we're going to first start off with Saquon Barkley. Barkley is a must-have. This is the engine of the New York Giants here. We definitely have to have him. Number 2 option, we're going to go with Curtis Samuel. I told you, this is the glue guy that we need to have. Love Curtis Samuel here. And number 3, I want to stick with that, attacking that running game. All right, that run defense on that Giants side of the ball. And that will be Antonio Gibson. So these three guys here, between Barkley, Samuel, and Antonio Gibson, you need to have in your lineups, and then you can build around them. All right. So thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at MetsNetsJetsD. And I'll be back with another video very soon. All right. Peace out, guys.